An elderly woman lost everything after answering a message she thought came from Keanu Reeves. Heartbroken and ashamed, she believed she was alone, until Keanu himself uncovered the truth. That night, he went live to millions, and what happened during that live stream would expose a global scam and leave the world speechless. Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. The day began quietly in Keanu Reeves's Los Angeles home. Sunlight filtered gently through the tall windows of his study, painting long shadows across the polished wooden desk where he often sat to read scripts, answer correspondence, or simply reflect. That morning, a small stack of fan letters rested on the corner of the desk, delivered by his assistant, as they were every week. Keanu valued them deeply, often carving out time to read each one with care, understanding that every envelope represented a life reaching out to him in trust and connection. One letter, however, stood out. Its envelope was slightly crumpled, the ink faded and shaky, as if written with trembling hands. The return address, written in slanted script, read, Mrs. Eleanor Brooks, Ohio. Something about the uneven handwriting made Keanu pause. He slid his finger carefully along the seal and pulled out a folded sheet of paper, lined and smudged with faint creases. The very first words hit him like a weight. Dear Mr. Reeves, I don't know if you will ever see this, but I have no one else to turn to. I am writing because I believed in you, and because of that, I lost everything. His breath caught. He leaned forward in his chair, eyes narrowing on the page. The letter unfolded with a rawness that pierced him deeper with each line. Eleanor, a 72-year-old widow, wrote of how she had received a friend request on Facebook from someone using his. The profile looked real, filled with images taken from public interviews and appearances. When she messaged him back, believing it was truly Keanu, the impersonator played a cruel role with precision. He told her he was lonely, that fame was isolating, and that he valued her kindness in responding. She believed it, holding on to every word as if it were a blessing in her otherwise quiet days. Weeks passed, and the messages grew bolder. The scammer spoke of needing funds to complete a secret charity project, assuring Eleanor that she would be helping him in a personal way. He insisted on secrecy, saying he trusted her more than anyone else. Flattered and desperate to be of service, Eleanor withdrew her savings, converting them into cryptocurrency under his guidance. She wrote in shaky words how she clicked send, imagining her money would fuel goodness in the world. Instead, her bank account drained to zero. When she later discovered the truth, the shame nearly crushed her. She admitted in the letter that she felt foolish, that her neighbors would laugh if they knew, and that her children had long stopped visiting her. She described skipping meals to pay for basic bills, holding back tears while standing in line at the grocery store. And yet, she wrote not with anger, but with heartbreak, saying she felt she had failed him, the real Keanu, for being deceived in his name. Keanu's chest tightened. He set the letter down for a moment, staring at the grain of the desk beneath his hands. Silence filled the room, broken only by the soft hum of the city beyond the walls. Then he picked the letter back up, reading it again, slower this time, as though the repetition might lessen the blow. It didn't. Every word carried the weight of betrayal, but also the fragile trust Eleanor had once held in him, a trust that had been twisted and shattered. At the end of her letter, she wrote, I don't expect a reply. I just needed you to know that someone used your face to take away my dignity. I don't hate you. I still think you are good. I just don't know what to do now. The final sentence trailed off with a smear of ink, as though a tear had fallen on the page. Keanu lowered the letter slowly onto the desk, his hands lingering on its edges. His eyes remained fixed, but his mind spun with images, an elderly woman alone, in her kitchen, her refrigerator nearly empty, her heart heavy with shame. It was not just her money that had been stolen. It was her sense of safety, her trust in human connection, and her belief that kindness could still exist without a hidden price. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand across his face. For years, he had heard stories of imposters using his likeness online, But seeing the consequences so vividly written in Eleanor's frail handwriting was different. It was no longer an abstract problem. It was flesh and blood. It was Eleanor, in that quiet study, surrounded by shelves of books and photographs of a career spanning decades. Keanu felt the weight of responsibility pressing down harder than ever before. Someone had weaponized his name to hurt the very people who looked up to him, and now he faced the unbearable truth. Unless he acted, more would suffer. He stared at the letter one last time, his jaw tightening, and whispered under his breath, "This can't happen again." Keanu pushed himself away from the desk, pacing the room in slow, deliberate steps. The letter remained on the wood like a wound he couldn't close. His mind replayed Eleanor's words, each line striking with fresh impact. He imagined her writing late at night under a dim lamp, her hand unsteady, her heart breaking as she confessed her pain to a man she had never met. He had spent his life trying to live with quiet integrity, but now his name had been twisted into a weapon. The cruelty of it gnawed at him. The scammer hadn't just stolen money. He had preyed on loneliness, manipulating trust with a smile that wasn't his, with words he would never speak. That thought burned deeper than any insult ever thrown his way. As he stopped by the window, the city stretched endlessly outside. To millions, Los Angeles glittered with promise. But to Eleanor, Ohio was now nothing but quiet despair. He felt the distance between them like a canyon, one he could not allow to remain. She wasn't the first, and she wouldn't be the last, not unless he stepped in. Keanu pressed his palms to the glass, his reflection staring back at him. For the first time in years, the reflection didn't feel like him. It felt like the imposter, the digital phantom who had turned his image into bait. His voice, low and rough, broke the silence. "How many more before it stops?" He returned to the desk, reading the letter again from beginning to end. Not once did Eleanor ask for money. Not once did she beg for restitution. All she wanted was for him to know the truth. And now that he did, there could be no turning away. Keanu sat back down, his fingertips brushing the fragile paper as though it might crumble under too much pressure. The ink blotches told their own story: hesitation, pauses where Eleanor must have fought tears, moments where her courage nearly faltered before she pressed on. This was more than a letter. It was a lifeline she had cast into the dark, hoping someone might answer. He pictured her life with painful clarity. A small kitchen table, a framed photograph of her late husband, perhaps a calendar with too many empty squares. Loneliness can be cruel, and predators know it. The scammer had sensed her vulnerability and wrapped lies around it until she surrendered not just money, but trust itself. What stung most was her unwavering kindness. Even after losing everything, Eleanor still chose to write gently, to protect his dignity, rather than condemn him for what had been done in his name. That selflessness humbled him more than he could admit. He whispered softly to the empty room, "You deserved better." The words hung in the air, heavier than silence. He folded the letter with slow precision and slid it back into its worn envelope. The act felt ceremonial, like tucking away a sacred truth. He knew he would never forget what he had read. Keanu leaned forward, elbows resting on the desk, hands clasped tightly. His eyes stayed fixed on the envelope, but his thoughts stretched far beyond it. Somewhere in Ohio, a woman sat in quiet despair, believing she had failed him. He knew he couldn't let that belief remain. This was more than an online scam. This was an attack on trust itself, and if he allowed it to continue, her suffering would echo in countless others. The letter never left Keanu's mind. It followed him into his dreams, into the quiet moments between tasks, into the stillness of dawn. He couldn't shake Eleanor's fragile handwriting or the soft plea beneath her words. It wasn't enough to know about her pain. He had to see her, to show her that she wasn't invisible and that what had been stolen from her wasn't her dignity, but her trust. 2 days later, Keanu found himself behind the wheel of his car, heading east toward a quiet Ohio suburb. He kept the trip discreet, telling almost no one, only arranging a simple contact with Eleanor through a trusted assistant. The drive from the small local airport carried him past stretches of bare trees and modest homes with porches that sagged under the weight of years. There was no red carpet, no cameras, no spotlight here. Just real life, lived quietly, often unnoticed. When he pulled up to Eleanor's street, he saw her house at once. It was small, single-story, with weathered siding that had once been white but now leaned toward gray. The lawn was neatly trimmed despite its sparse patches, and 2 wind chimes hung by the front porch, tinkling faintly in the cold breeze. The sight struck him. Despite hardship, she still maintained a sense of order, of care. Eleanor appeared in the doorway before he even reached the steps. She was frail, her shoulders slightly hunched, a cardigan draped over her frame. Her silver hair was tied back simply, and her eyes wide and glassy with disbelief, welled with tears the moment she saw him. She lifted a trembling hand to her mouth, as if afraid her voice might fail her if she spoke too soon. Keanu paused at the bottom of the steps, giving her space. Then, with a small, gentle smile, he said softly, "Mrs. Brooks?" She nodded, lowering her hand, though her breath caught in a small sob. I never thought." Her voice trailed, overwhelmed. He climbed the steps slowly, deliberately, until he stood in front of her. Without hesitation, he extended his hand, but when she moved to shake it, he instead wrapped her hand carefully between both of his, a gesture not of formality, but of reassurance. "You don't need to be embarrassed," he said quietly, reading the apology already forming in her expression. "None of this was your fault." Tears slid down Eleanor's cheeks, but she shook her head weakly. "I was so foolish. I should have known better. My children, they barely speak to me now. If they find out, they'll think I've lost my mind." Keanu squeezed her hand gently, steadying her. "No, what happened doesn't make you foolish. It makes the people who did this cruel. Trusting someone is not a weakness." For a moment, she searched his eyes as though trying to believe him. Then, with a hesitant nod, she stepped back and gestured for him to enter. Inside, the house smelled faintly of lavender and old books. The furniture was modest but carefully kept. On a side table, a framed photograph of a man in a military uniform suggested a husband long gone, his smile frozen in time. Keanu glanced at it briefly, then returned his attention to Eleanor. She motioned toward the small kitchen table, where 2 mugs sat waiting. "I made tea," she whispered. "It's all I could think to offer." He smiled faintly. "That's more than enough." As they sat across from each other, the weight of her story hung in the air, unspoken but heavy, waiting to be told. Steam rose gently from the mugs on the table, carrying the faint scent of chamomile. Eleanor sat with both hands wrapped around her cup, though she didn't drink. Her fingers trembled slightly, her knuckles pale, and she kept her eyes lowered as if afraid to meet his gaze for too long. Keanu leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table, his voice low and steady. "You don't have to tell me everything if it's too painful. I just wanted to meet you, to hear from you directly, and to let you know that you're not alone. No, I need to say it out loud. I've been carrying it inside, and it's been eating me alive." She set her mug down carefully, then pressed her palms together, as though gathering courage. "The first message came on a Sunday evening," she began, her voice quiet but firm. "I was sitting right here, knitting, when my phone lit up. A friend request, your picture, your name. I thought, maybe it was real. I laughed to myself at first. What would someone like you want with someone like me? But then I thought of all the interviews I'd watched where you spoke about kindness, about noticing people who are overlooked. I wanted to believe it could be true." Her eyes lifted briefly, filled with shame. "When he wrote that he was lonely, that he needed someone to talk to, I felt special. I felt useful again. And then, when he said he trusted me, that I could help him with something private, I wanted to help. I thought I was doing good, so I sent the money." Her voice cracked on the last word. Keanu's throat tightened, but he kept his gaze steady, offering silent strength. Eleanor wiped at her cheek quickly, embarrassed by the tears that refused to stop. I skipped meals to make. Up for it, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I told myself it was fine, that I'd manage. But then when I realized it was all a lie, I wanted to disappear. I thought about never telling anyone. I didn't want to burden my children, and I didn't want to hear them call me naive. Keanu reached across the table slowly, laying his hand gently over hers. Eleanor, listen to me. You are not naive. You are compassionate. That man didn't steal because you were foolish. He stole because you were kind. That's on him, not you. Her shoulders trembled, and she looked down at their joined hands. For the first time, a small flicker of relief crossed her face, as though a piece of the shame had lifted. You don't understand, she said, after a pause. The world tells us to trust less, to harden our hearts, but I didn't want to live that way. And now look what it cost me. Keanu's voice grew firm, but still gentle. It cost you money, Eleanor, but it didn't cost you your heart. Don't let them take that. That's the one thing they can't fake. Her lips parted, her breath caught, and for the first time since he arrived, she allowed herself a faint, fragile smile. The room grew quiet again, broken only by the faint ticking of a wall clock. Eleanor let out a shaky breath, still holding onto his hand as though it tethered her back to the present. I don't know why I wrote you that letter, she confessed softly. I didn't expect you to come. I thought maybe someone on your team would read it and throw it away. Keanu shook his head slowly. No letter is ever wasted, and yours mattered more than you'll ever know. It reminded me that what people do with my name has consequences I can't ignore. Her eyes shimmered again, but this time the tears didn't fall from shame. They came from being seen. She squeezed his hand with surprising strength. You shouldn't be the one apologizing. You did nothing wrong. But Keanu leaned closer, his expression unflinching. I may not have done this to you, but it was done in my name, and for that, I am sorry. I am sorry you suffered because someone twisted your kindness into a weapon. I can't stand by and pretend it didn't happen. Eleanor shook her head, her voice cracking. You're the first person to say that to me. Everyone else, when I hinted at what happened, they just looked at me with pity, or worse, like I'd lost my sense. You're the only one who doesn't make me feel small. Keanu swallowed hard. Her dignity in the midst of such loss pierced him deeper than any accusation ever could. She hadn't asked for compensation. She hadn't demanded anything from him. All she wanted was acknowledgement, and still, she carried herself with quiet grace. He looked around her modest kitchen, the faded curtains, the chipped countertop, the cupboards that closed unevenly. Life here was humble, but it was lived with care. And now, because of someone hiding behind a stolen picture, even her careful balance had been shattered. I skipped dinners, she admitted, almost as if confessing a secret. Some days I pretended I wasn't hungry. I thought if I tightened my belt, I could stretch what I had left. But then the bills kept coming, and I felt like I had given away not just money, but my future. Keanu's jaw tightened. He reached across, covering both of her hands with his. You didn't give away your future, Eleanor. You still have it, and I'll do everything I can to make sure you don't face it alone. She blinked at him, startled by the conviction in his voice. Her lips parted, but no words came. Slowly, her shoulders lowered, the tension easing ever so slightly. For the first time, the shame seemed to retreat, replaced by a glimmer of hope. Keanu knew in that moment his resolve had hardened beyond return. He couldn't stop at comfort. He couldn't leave her house and carry on as though her suffering were just another story among many. Eleanor had given him something few ever could, a clear reminder of what was at stake: trust, compassion, human dignity, and he would not let those be stolen again. The drive back from Eleanor's home lingered in Keanu's chest, like a storm that refused to pass. Her words echoed inside him, every detail of her story burning with injustice. By the time he landed back in Los Angeles, he knew the truth. Compassion alone wouldn't be enough. He had comforted her, but comfort wouldn't stop the next predator. If he wanted to protect others, he needed knowledge, strategy, and allies who could fight in a world he didn't fully understand. Keanu had never pretended to be a digital expert. He could navigate his phone, use email, and post occasional updates for fans, but the battlefield of online scams was foreign territory. He thought of Eleanor's trembling hands, her admission of skipping meals, and he clenched his jaw. He couldn't fight wolves with bare fists. He needed people who lived and breathed this terrain. That night, sitting in his study with Eleanor's letter on the desk beside him, Keanu scrolled through messages from people who had once offered their help when imposter accounts surfaced. Most had been fans reporting fakes, but one message stood out. Months earlier, a young man named Alex Rook, a UCLA computer science student, had reached out to warn him about a fraudulent Instagram page. The note had been sharp, full of technical detail, and signed with a quirky line. "If you ever want backup, I know a few nerds who hate scammers as much as you hate them using your name." Keanu had saved the message. Now, he pulled it up again. He typed only a few words in reply. "Alex, I need to talk." The response came in under a minute. "Seriously? You're actually replying? Tell me when and where. I've got people." By the following evening, Keanu's home library transformed into something it had never been before. The long oak table, usually covered with scripts and novels, was cleared to make space for laptops, portable monitors, and a tangle of charging cords. 4 young men and women filled the room, all in their early 20s, buzzing with energy that mixed awe at their surroundings with seriousness about the mission. Alex Rook stood at the center. He was tall, with messy brown hair that looked like it had been wrestled with rather than styled, and a hoodie that bore the logo of a retro video game. His confidence carried the air of someone used to breaking digital locks just to see if he could. His voice, quick and animated, cut through the hum of the equipment. "All right," Alex said, looking around the room. "We've got access to blockchain explorers, OSINT databases, and live monitoring tools. If these scammers are as sloppy as most, we can track the flow of their wallets and maybe pin down where they're operating from. But we'll need to coordinate everything in real time." Keanu sat at the end of the table listening intently. He wasn't there to play the expert. He was there to learn, to lend his presence, and to remind them why they were doing this. When Alex finally turned to him, Keanu's voice was calm but firm. "Whatever tools you need, I'll get them. Just tell me what it takes." The young coder's grin flashed with both mischief and respect. "Mr. Reeves, you just opened a war room." The atmosphere in the library shifted as the students settled into their roles. Monitors lit up the room with streams of scrolling code, network diagrams, and maps dotted with pulsing markers. The quiet sanctuary of books now looked like the command center of a digital battlefield. The smell of coffee and pizza mingled with the faint leather of old volumes, a strange harmony of old and new. Keanu moved quietly among them, offering bottled water, asking questions when he didn't understand. He noticed how their faces lit with passion as they explained concepts. One young woman named Priya showed him a deepfake video generator. On the left, his own face smiled and spoke words he had never said. On the right, the real him sat in stunned silence. "It's not just about fooling someone in passing," Priya explained, her dark hair pulled into a bun, glasses sliding down her nose. "These fakes are trained on your interviews, your films, your voice patterns. They're almost indistinguishable for someone who doesn't know the red flags. And scammers know who they're targeting: people who trust, people who are isolated." Keanu studied the screen for a long moment, his jaw tightening. If Eleanor couldn't tell this was fake, how could anyone else? "That's exactly the point," Priya said softly. At another station, a student named Jamal was tracing cryptocurrency transactions. He pointed at the screen where a line of numbers stretched endlessly. "Every time they pull money from a victim, it moves through these wallets. They think crypto makes them invisible, but it's all recorded here. If we follow enough links, we can build a web and hand it over to law enforcement." Alex, leaning against the back of a chair, added with a grin, "We're basically untangling spaghetti one noodle at a time." Keanu chuckled lightly despite himself, then grew serious. "How long before they notice what you're doing?" "Probably already have," Alex replied. "But that's the fun part. We work fast, and we work together. The goal isn't just to expose them, it's to make people like Eleanor untouchable." The words struck Keanu deeply. He glanced again at Eleanor's letter, which he had brought into the library and placed in the center of the table. It acted as a reminder, an anchor for why they were there. "Whatever happens," Keanu said firmly, his voice carrying the gravity of a vow, "we do this for her, and for every person who thinks they're alone in this." The students nodded in unison, the energy in the room sharpening into focus. Laughter faded, chatter quieted, and fingers returned to keyboards with renewed determination. Hollywood luxury surrounded them: polished floors, shelves lined with first editions, framed photos of Keanu with colleagues from decades of work. Yet the raw urgency of youth, fueled by justice and caffeine, gave the room a heartbeat unlike anything it had known before. This was no longer a study, it was a war room. As the night wore on, the library buzzed with the rhythm of furious typing and low, urgent voices. Keanu sat quietly at the edge of the table, his eyes moving from screen to screen. He didn't need to understand every string of code to feel the gravity of what was unfolding. These young men and women weren't just students anymore, they were soldiers in a war fought without bullets. At one point, Alex projected a live feed onto the wall, splitting it into quadrants. Each panel showed a different piece of the puzzle: cryptocurrency transfers, social media accounts tied to the scams, metadata from images, and even chat logs recovered from impersonator accounts. The glow of shifting numbers and graphs washed over Keanu's face, highlighting the furrow in his brow. "Here's the thing," Alex said, pointing at one panel. "They think they can hide behind layers of fake accounts and VPNs. But every once in a while, they slip up. They use the same email, the same IP address, or forget to mask their time zone. That's where we catch them." Keanu studied the board. "And once you catch them," Priya leaned forward, adjusting her glasses, "we package the evidence, screenshots, transaction histories, timestamps. We make it airtight. Then we hand it over to people who can actually kick down doors." Jamal spun his chair toward Keanu. "But we can't do this halfway. If we're going live like you mentioned, we need to prepare for them to fight back. Bots, attacks, spam floods, it'll come." Keanu nodded slowly. "Then we prepare." A hush settled over the group at his words. For them, this was more than a project. It was a mission, with a face, a voice, and a victim they could all picture: Eleanor, who had written a trembling letter that reached across miles to bring them here. Alex clapped his hands together, breaking the quiet. "All right, team. This is bigger than a late-night hackathon. This is about giving people back their trust. Let's make this place ground zero for something that matters." One by one, the students raised their eyes toward Keanu. He didn't need to give a speech. His presence was enough. The scars of Eleanor's story were etched into his expression, and that truth bound them tighter than any rallying cry could. The room filled again with the sound of determination keyboards rattling like gunfire, screens flashing with breakthroughs. Keanu rose, moving to the center of the room. He looked at the letter resting in the middle of the table, then at each face lit by the glow of their monitors. "This house has seen many scripts," he said quietly. "But tonight, you're writing the most important one, and we're going to make sure the ending belongs to people like Eleanor, not to the ones who prey on them." For a moment, silence followed. Then Alex grinned, leaned back in his chair, and said, "Well, Mr. Reeves, I think that's our green light." The war room had officially come alive. The library had grown quiet after hours of furious typing, the glow of monitors casting shadows on the walls lined with books. Keanu sat at the head of the table, his hands folded, listening as the students exchanged rapid ideas. The work so far had revealed patterns, weaknesses, and breadcrumbs, but they all knew the truth. Exposing the scam behind closed doors wasn't enough. They needed to drag the lies into the light. Alex leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against his knee. "Look, these scammers thrive in the shadows. They're counting on victims being too embarrassed to speak out, too ashamed to admit they were fooled. That's why they get away with it. We can't just pass evidence to authorities and call it a day." We have to break the cycle. Priya adjusted her glasses and looked directly at Keanu. Your platform is powerful. Millions of people trust you. If you went live on your verified channel, we could reach people before the scammers do. We could teach them how to spot the fakes, show them how the cons work in real time, and warn them before they lose everything. The idea hit the room like a spark. Keanu didn't answer right away. He leaned back, thinking of Eleanor, of the shame in her voice when she admitted she had skipped meals, of the tear-stained letter she never thought he'd read. Going live wasn't just a broadcast. It would be a stand. Jamal leaned forward, his fingers drumming on the edge of his laptop. It wouldn't just be awareness. We could use it to gather leads. Thousands of people watching could share their own stories, screenshots, messages. Together, that's more evidence than any one agency could collect in months. The group's eyes shifted to Keanu. He looked down at his hands for a moment, then lifted his gaze with quiet determination. This isn't about me. It's about protecting people who trust. If going live can help even one person avoid Eleanor's fate, then we do it. The students exchanged glances, the weight of his words pressing on them. Alex broke into a grin. All right then. Midnight stream, high stakes, big audience, real impact. We'll build it like a 3-part operation: education, investigation, and community action. He scribbled on a notepad, drawing rough outlines. First, we teach. Show people what deepfakes look like, how they trick the eye, what red flags to watch for. Second, we investigate live. We trace wallets, expose accounts, and walk the audience through how scams really work. Third, we activate the community. We set up a way for people to report fakes and contribute stories in real time. And if we do it right, law enforcement won't just watch, they'll move. Priya added, her voice steady. It has to be airtight. Stream security, backups, redundancy. If they try to take us down, we stay online. This isn't just a broadcast, it's a digital intervention. Keanu nodded slowly, the fire building behind his calm tone. Then let's make it happen. The room shifted into action once Keanu gave his approval. The students came alive, their voices overlapping as ideas spilled onto notepads, screens, and whiteboards dragged in from the hallway. It wasn't just a plan anymore, it was a mission with a deadline. Alex took charge with the confidence of someone used to organizing chaos. Okay, if we're going live at midnight, we need a structure that keeps people engaged. We'll start with a hook, Keanu. You'll open with Eleanor's story. Nothing sensational, just the truth. People need to hear her words. That alone will grip them. Keanu nodded, though the thought of reading Eleanor's letter aloud tightened his chest. Still, he understood. It wasn't about his comfort. It was about making her voice louder than the scammer's lies. Priya tapped her laptop screen, where she had already mocked up a presentation slide. After that, we'll move into demonstrations. We'll show a deepfake of you side by side with the real you. We'll highlight the inconsistencies, eye movement, unnatural pauses, voice modulation errors. The goal is to empower viewers. If they know what to look for, they're less likely to be deceived. Jamal added, his tone sharp with excitement. Then we go investigative. We'll track a transaction live. Show them how the scammer's wallet works, where the money hops, how nothing is as invisible as they want people to believe. It's transparency, but also a chase they can follow. We also need a channel for victims to come forward during the stream. A live submission form, maybe. If someone's grandmother or neighbor is being targeted, they can upload screenshots instantly. We'll display the most relevant cases in real time. The ideas kept layering, each more ambitious than the last. Keanu listened, interjecting only when he felt the need. This isn't about overwhelming people with tech. Remember, many watching will be older, like Eleanor. Keep the language clear. Show them, don't drown them. Priya smiled softly. You're right. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. The clock on the wall ticked steadily toward the deadline. The students fueled themselves with energy drinks and slices of cold pizza while coding, designing, and rehearsing. Keanu stayed with them, not as a supervisor, but as a teammate. He read aloud draft introductions, practiced explaining concepts in plain terms, and asked questions to ensure nothing sounded too technical. At one point, Alex stepped back from the whiteboard, streaked with arrows and bullet points. Education, investigation, action. That's our structure. But it's also a story. People will tune in for you, Keanu, but they'll stay for the truth. And if we do this right, they'll leave with power. Keanu looked around the room, taking in the glowing faces of his young allies. The fire in their eyes reminded him of the determination he had seen in Eleanor's quiet dignity. He straightened, his voice firm but calm. Then tonight, we don't just fight back. We change the narrative. As midnight drew closer, the library no longer resembled the quiet retreat it once was. Cables snaked across the floor, cameras stood on tripods, and microphones dangled from makeshift rigs. The students worked with the urgency of people building a fortress before an incoming storm. Keanu moved among them, helping where he could, asking questions when he didn't understand, absorbing every detail of the operation that bore his name. Maria adjusted the lighting, making sure the room looked warm and inviting rather than staged. People need to feel like they're sitting across the table from you, she explained. If it looks too polished, it won't feel real. Authenticity is your strongest weapon. Keanu smiled faintly. That and the truth. Jamal tested the streaming software, projecting a split-screen preview. On one side was Keanu's live camera. On the other, a rotating feed of charts, scammer profiles, and deepfake demonstrations. This will keep the audience hooked. They'll see you, but they'll also see what we're exposing in real time. No smoke and mirrors, just receipts. Alex gathered everyone for one final briefing, scribbling the plan in bold strokes on the whiteboard. Segment 1, the story. Keanu, you open with Eleanor's letter. Straightforward, emotional, undeniable. Segment 2, education. We show the deepfakes, highlight the flaws, break the illusion. Segment 3, investigation. We chase wallets, expose accounts, and show people how the scam runs. Segment 4, community action. Victims submit stories. We amplify them. We point them to safe resources. Then we close with a call for trust, not fear. Priya added softly. And remember, there's risk. The scammers will notice. They'll try to disrupt the stream, maybe flood it with bots or misinformation. But if we prepare backups, we can stay ahead. Keanu studied the whiteboard, then looked back at his team. His voice was quiet, but every word carried. If they fight back, it means they're afraid. And if they're afraid, it means we're winning. What matters most is that people like Eleanor know someone is standing with them. The students fell silent, the weight of his words settling over the room. Each of them had come here because they believed in the cause, but hearing it framed so simply, standing with the vulnerable, galvanized them even more. The final hours were a blur of adjustments and rehearsals. Keanu practiced reading the opening lines of Eleanor's letter, his voice catching slightly each time he reached the part where she admitted skipping meals. He didn't hide the emotion. He let it sit in his tone, raw and honest. Priya polished the slides. Jamal fine-tuned the trackers. Maria tested the sound repeatedly, and Alex ran simulations of potential attacks. At last, everything was ready. The room glowed with quiet anticipation. Screens displayed the countdown to midnight. Cameras fixed their gaze on the man at the center, and the students took their places like a crew before launch. Keanu adjusted the microphone, glanced at the letter folded neatly on the desk, and inhaled slowly. For Eleanor. For everyone like her. Tonight, truth would no longer whisper, it would roar. The announcement spread quietly at first, like sparks drifting across dry grass. A simple post appeared on Keanu's verified social media. Going live tonight, midnight PST. Something important. No movie logo, no glossy studio trailer, just plain words and a time. Yet within minutes, those sparks ignited into wildfire. Fan forums buzzed with speculation. Some swore it had to be a surprise film announcement, maybe a hidden sequel or charity project. Others guessed it might be connected to his love of motorcycles, perhaps unveiling a new design. Theories piled higher by the hour, and hashtags began trending worldwide. Keanu Live shot to the top of feeds, followed closely by Midnight with Reeves. Inside the library turned command center. The energy grew heavier by the minute. The students double-checked every connection, tested every backup feed, and scanned for potential cyber attacks. The table was a maze of wires and open laptops, but to them, it looked like a fortress. Keanu moved quietly among them, rehearsing his lines in a low voice. He held Eleanor's letter in his hands, its creases softening from being read so many times. He had committed most of it to memory, but he wanted the audience to hear her words exactly as she wrote them. Each time he reached the part where she admitted skipping meals to send money, his throat tightened. He didn't try to hide it. Authenticity was the entire point. Meanwhile, in a small home hundreds of miles away, Eleanor sat in her armchair with her television tuned to the news and her phone balanced on her lap. She had heard from Keanu's assistant that he would be speaking that night, using her story as the reason. The thought both terrified and comforted her. She worried the world would judge her weakness, but she also hoped her pain might keep someone else from falling into the same trap. She knitted nervously as she waited, her scarf growing row by row while the clock crept toward midnight. Back online, the chatter grew louder. Comment sections overflowed with excitement and confusion. What's he announcing? Is this about John Wick? He never goes live. This must be big. The curiosity worked in their favor. The more people speculated, the more likely they were to tune in. But not everyone welcomed the news. In a dimly lit apartment on the other side of the world, two men hunched over glowing screens frowned at the sudden activity. They weren't movie fans. They were part of the very network that had drained Eleanor's savings, and Keanu's midnight announcement sent ripples of unease through their operation. One of them cursed under his breath, scrolling furiously. He's up to something. He never does this. Why now? The other narrowed his eyes. Because someone talked. He's coming for us. If he goes public, we'll need to bury the stream before it gains traction. They exchanged a look of grim resolve. The stage was set, but both sides knew midnight would not come quietly. The hours leading up to midnight ticked by with a strange tension that stretched across two worlds. In Los Angeles, Keanu's house glowed softly against the night sky. Inside, the library pulsed with screens and nervous energy. The students worked in hushed concentration, their fingers flying across keyboards, their eyes darting between lines of code and status checks. Every so often, someone muttered a technical update. Stream latency stable, redundancy server connected, firewall tight. Each confirmation brought a collective exhale, but no one relaxed completely. Keanu rehearsed again, standing at the head of the table as though it were already midnight. His voice carried the weight of Eleanor's words, trembling slightly when he read aloud the line about her dignity being stolen. Priya stopped him gently. Don't fight the emotion. People need to hear that you feel it. That's what will connect them. He nodded, folding the letter carefully and placing it back on the desk. I'm not here to be polished. I'm here to be real. In another time zone, the scammers scrolled feverishly through chat groups and encrypted threads. Their community of fraudsters buzzed with warnings. Some dismissed the live stream as nothing, convinced that celebrities never risk dirtying their hands with such matters. Others were less confident. If Keanu went live to millions, their cover could be blown in ways no VPN or burner account could hide. We'll flood the stream, one of them typed. Bots, spam, denial of service. If they can't broadcast, they can't expose us. The reply came swiftly, do it. Midnight PST, be ready. Back in Los Angeles, Jamal noticed a spike in background activity on the network monitor. He frowned, tilting his screen toward Alex. They're sniffing around already. I can feel it. Alex smirked, tapping furiously on his keyboard. Let them come. We built backups for this exact reason. The tension in the room deepened. Midnight wasn't just a countdown for the audience, it was also a deadline for battle. Meanwhile, fans continued to speculate. Twitter threads bloomed with excitement. Some insisted it was a prank. Others claimed it had to be tied to a secret charity, while others half-joked it might be a marriage announcement. Theories multiplied, drawing in even those who weren't fans. Curiosity had become its own magnet, ensuring that when the stream began, the audience would number in the millions. At home, Eleanor set her knitting aside and clasped her hands together, whispering a quiet prayer. She didn't pray for herself. She prayed that someone, somewhere, would see the stream before sending away their savings. She prayed that her shame could be transformed into someone else's salvation. Back at the library, Keanu checked the countdown on the main monitor. Less than 3 hours remained. He straightened his shoulders, glanced at the students, and gave a small nod. Let's be ready. Tonight isn't just a stream. Tonight, we reclaim trust. The room answered with quiet determination. Midnight loomed closer, and everyone felt the gravity of what was about to unfold. By the final hour, the anticipation had reached a fever pitch. Keanu's verified accounts were swarmed with comments, hearts, and questions. Fans from across the world counted down the minutes, setting alarms, sharing links, and speculating endlessly about what the midnight broadcast might reveal. The words Keanu Reeves Live trended in multiple countries, eclipsing even the usual entertainment headlines. In the library, the war room felt like a command center on the edge of battle. Every laptop screen reflected the anxious faces of the students as they ran last-minute simulations. Priya tested the slides again, ensuring the deepfake comparison would run without glitching. Jamal double-checked the crypto tracing tools, verifying that every transaction could be displayed clearly. Maria tested the microphone one final time, her brow furrowed in concentration. Alex walked the perimeter like a general, nodding at each station. We're solid. Whatever they throw at us, we'll be ready. The key is to keep the stream live, no matter what. Keanu sat quietly in the center, Eleanor's folded letter resting before him. He had rehearsed the words enough times, but he refused to turn them into a performance. The letter wasn't a script, it was a wound, and tonight he would show it to the world. He adjusted his breathing, finding calm in the storm around him. Miles away, Eleanor's small house was dark except for the glow of her television and phone. She had placed a box of tissues on the table beside her chair, bracing herself for the wave of emotion that was sure to come. She felt exposed, vulnerable, but also strangely empowered. If her humiliation could save even one soul from the same fate, then it would not have been in vain. In hidden chat rooms, the scammers prepared their counterattack. Dozens of anonymous accounts scheduled spam messages. Botnets waited for a trigger command. One ringleader typed furiously, his anger spilling into the keys. He thinks he can use his fame against us? He's finished. None of them had ever faced a target willing to fight publicly, on a stage this large. Their empire was built on silence and secrecy, and tonight both were about to be shattered. The library's clock ticked closer to midnight. Keanu rose slowly from his chair, his presence filling the room without a single word. He looked around at the young faces who had given their night and perhaps their safety to stand with him. He nodded once, a gesture of gratitude and resolve. Whatever happens, he said softly, we stay together, we stay steady. This is for Eleanor and for everyone like her. Let's show them that trust can't be stolen forever. A hush fell over the room. The students exchanged glances, then returned to their stations, hands poised, eyes sharp. The countdown reached its final minutes. Across the globe, millions waited, hearts racing, screens refreshed. In living rooms, on phones, in secret hideouts, and scam dens alike, the world leaned in. Midnight was coming. The clock struck midnight. Across the globe, screens flickered as millions of fans refreshed their feeds, waiting for the moment. And then, without warning, fanfare, or glossy intro graphics, the stream came to life. Keanu appeared on screen, seated at his desk in the library. He wore a simple black t-shirt, his hair loose around his face, no makeup, no special effects. The lighting was soft, warm, casting a quiet glow that made the moment feel intimate, almost like a conversation at a kitchen table, rather than a broadcast to millions. For a long second, he didn't speak. He simply looked into the camera, his gaze steady, his expression calm but heavy. Then his voice broke the silence. Tonight, I need to talk about something that isn't easy. Someone has been using my name, my face, and my voice to hurt people. They've stolen not just money, but dignity. They've taken advantage of trust, and it ends here." The chat exploded instantly. Hearts and exclamation marks scrolled faster than the eye could follow. Tens of thousands of viewers flooded in, the numbers climbing by the second. Some wrote in confusion, "What is this about?" While others typed frantically, "Yes, I almost got scammed." Keanu reached for the folded paper on the desk. He held it up gently, almost reverently. "This is a letter I received from someone named Eleanor. She's 72. She's a widow. And she thought she was helping me. Instead, she was robbed of her savings by someone pretending to be me. I want you to hear her words." He unfolded the letter and began to read. His voice was steady but carried the raw weight of sorrow as he spoke Eleanor's lines about loneliness, about trust, about sending away her money in hopes of doing good. When he reached the sentence about her skipping meals, his voice cracked just slightly. He paused, lowered the letter for a moment, took a breath, then continued. Viewers typed furiously. "My grandma almost fell for the same scam. This makes me sick. How could anyone do that to her?" The outrage and heartbreak poured across the chat window in a flood. Keanu finished the letter and set it down carefully. His hands remained on the table, open, visible. "Eleanor is here with us tonight," he said softly. "She agreed to share her story, not because she wants pity, but because she wants to protect others. Eleanor, thank you for being brave." The camera shifted to a second window, where Eleanor sat in her modest living room, her cardigan buttoned neatly, her hands folded in her lap. Her eyes shimmered with tears, but her voice carried quiet strength. "I thought I was helping someone I admired. I never imagined it was a lie. If my story can keep even one person safe, then it was worth telling." The chat erupted with messages of support. "We love you, Eleanor. You're not alone. You're stronger than the scammers." Keanu nodded toward her screen, his expression tender. "You didn't fail, Eleanor. The people who stole from you did. And tonight, we're gonna make sure they can't do it again." The number of viewers climbed at a staggering pace. What began as tens of thousands swelled into hundreds of thousands within minutes. The chat box became a river of outrage, compassion, and disbelief. Words like disgusting, heartbreaking, and unbelievable flew by so quickly they blurred together. Keanu let the reactions run for a moment, giving space for Eleanor's voice to settle in. Then he leaned closer to the camera, his tone steady but firm. "I know some of you watching have seen these messages. Some of you may even be wondering right now if the Keanu Reeves in your inbox is real. I want to make this clear. I will never ever ask for money. Not through messages, not through secret accounts, not in private. If someone claims I have, they are lying to you." The chat lit up with relief and anger in equal measure. Dozens typed that they had almost fallen for similar schemes, that they had screenshots, that they wished they'd known sooner. At that cue, Alex signaled from off-camera, and the screen split to show a demonstration window. Priya walked viewers through the anatomy of a fake account. She showed how scammers use stolen photos, altered timelines, and manipulated comments to create convincing profiles. She explained red flags to watch for, inconsistencies in spelling, sudden requests for secrecy, or demands for cryptocurrency. Keanu listened closely, interjecting with simple clarifications. "So if someone says, 'I trust you, but you can't tell anyone,' that's not trust. That's control. And it's a lie." His calm presence gave weight to every technical explanation. Eleanor's window remained open in the corner of the stream. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue, nodding at the lessons being shared. She wasn't just a victim now. She was part of the resistance, living proof of why the fight mattered. Jamal took over next, tracing a sample transaction. He explained how a scammer might convince a victim to send Bitcoin or another digital currency, then demonstrated how that money moved through multiple wallets. The live feed showed numbers hopping across the blockchain explorer, each transfer a breadcrumb in the scammer's trail. "This is what they think makes them invisible," Jamal said. But in reality, every step leaves a mark. With enough eyes, we can follow the trail. The chat exploded again, this time with messages of empowerment. I didn't know this. So, we can fight back? Show us how to report it. Keanu leaned in once more. His expression carried the gravity of a promise. Yes, you can fight back. You fight back by sharing what you know, by refusing to stay silent, by refusing to carry shame that doesn't belong to you. Eleanor showed us courage tonight. Let's follow her example. The wave of support intensified. Messages of love and gratitude flooded the feed, scrolling too fast to read. The stream had transformed from a warning into a movement, and the night was still young. The viewer count crossed the 1 million mark. What had begun as curiosity was now a tidal wave of global attention. People tuned in from every continent, some sharing stories of relatives almost scammed, others typing furious condemnations of the criminals. The atmosphere felt less like a live stream and more like a gathering of voices united against one injustice. Maria monitored the feed, her brow furrowed as waves of comments scrolled across her screen. She nudged Alex. Look at this. Dozens of people are saying they've been contacted in the last week. Same fake accounts, same stories. Alex scanned quickly, his eyes lighting with urgency. That's evidence. That's gold. Keep capturing it. Keanu glanced at them, then turned back to the camera. His voice dropped into a softer register. For those of you who've been hurt by this, I need you to hear me clearly. You didn't fail. The ones who exploited your kindness did. What they stole wasn't just money. They tried to steal your faith in goodness. But tonight, we're taking that back. Eleanor's window flickered as she shifted in her chair. Her voice, shaky but resolute, cut through the stream. If you're watching this, please don't carry shame like I did. Don't hide what happened. Share it. Speak it out loud. You'll feel lighter, I promise. The chat erupted again, this time with messages of solidarity. Viewers typed their own confessions, the emails they'd almost answered, the times they hesitated before sending money, the doubt that haunted them afterward. The flood of honesty filled the stream with raw humanity, each message a thread in a larger fabric of truth. Behind the scenes, Jamal noticed a spike in bot activity. They're trying to jam us, he muttered, fingers flying across his keyboard. Lines of spam began to appear in the chat strings of nonsense, fake links, attempts to drown out the voices. But the team was ready. Jamal triggered the filters, sweeping the intrusions aside. The legitimate messages poured back in, unbroken. Keanu didn't flinch. He stayed steady, letting the moment build. There are people out there who believe hiding in the dark makes them powerful. But look at what's happening right now. Millions of you, standing together, shining a light. That's power. And no scammer can take it away from you. The numbers continued to climb, the chat overflowing with hearts, tears, and cheers. Viewers weren't just watching, they were part of something larger than themselves, part of a movement sparked by Eleanor's courage and carried by Keanu's resolve. As the stream rolled forward, the mission was clear. This wasn't just about exposing fraud. It was about restoring trust. And with every passing second, the momentum grew stronger, unstoppable. The stream shifted smoothly into its next phase. Alex gave a nod, and Priya pulled up a slide that split the screen into 2 windows. On the left, a deepfake version of Keanu appeared, smiling and speaking lines in a voice eerily close to his own. On the right, the real Keanu sat quietly, arms folded, watching alongside millions of viewers. The fake spoke first. My dear friend, I am so grateful for your loyalty. I can only share this with you. Please, for me, send a small contribution so we can continue this important mission together. Keep this between us. The real Keanu shook his head slowly. I never said those words. I never would. But you can see how convincing it looks. To someone alone at night, scrolling their phone, this could seem real. Priya froze the video and zoomed in on subtle glitches. Look closely at the eyes, she explained. Notice how they don't quite track naturally. The blinking is uneven. Also, Listen to the rhythm of the voice. It sounds rehearsed, mechanical. Deepfakes mimic patterns, but they miss the human imperfection that makes speech authentic. The chat filled with shocked messages. "Oh my God, I almost fell for this last month. That's exactly what I saw." How is anyone supposed to know the difference? Keanu leaned forward, his tone calm and reassuring. "You can know, and it starts with remembering this. I will never ask for money privately. Not through messages, not through secret conversations. If you see that, it's not me." Jamal took over next, opening an inbox filled with phishing attempts. He highlighted one message that used his name. The subject line read, "Special opportunity from Keanu Reeves." The body of the email included clumsy grammar and a link to a crypto wallet. "Notice the red flags," Jamal explained. "Odd sentence structure, generic greetings like 'my friend,' and of course, the demand for cryptocurrency. If someone insists on crypto, that's a huge warning sign. Real charities don't work that way." The camera returned to Keanu, who raised a hand slightly, his expression steady. "And if you did fall for one of these messages, if you sent money or information, hear me when I say this. You are not foolish. Trust is not weakness. Trust is a strength. The shame belongs to the ones who exploited it, not to you." The chat lit up with hearts, crying emojis, and messages of relief. Some admitted they had stayed silent out of embarrassment, but now felt seen. Others typed that they would share the stream with their parents and grandparents. The tide was turning. The audience was no longer just viewers, they were students arming themselves with knowledge. Priya clicked to the next demonstration, pulling up another manipulated clip. This time, the deepfake version of Keanu appeared dressed in a suit, standing against a backdrop of blurred lights. The voice was polished, smoother than the last, but the words carried the same poisoned core. "I am offering a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to join me in a private investment. Only a few will be chosen. If you are loyal, send your contribution now, and you will be rewarded beyond measure." Gasps filled the chat, dozens typing all at once. "My aunt got that message. I swear I saw this exact video on Instagram. That's terrifying." Keanu raised a hand, pausing the feed. His tone was steady but firm. "Let me be absolutely clear. I don't offer secret investments. I don't recruit people into private opportunities. And if you ever hear the phrase, 'only a few will be chosen,' walk away. That's not opportunity. That's manipulation." Alex leaned forward from his station, adding context. "Scammers love urgency. They'll pressure you to act fast, to keep things secret, or to believe you're part of something exclusive. That's how they trap you. The moment you feel rushed or isolated, that's your warning sign." Eleanor's face appeared again in her corner window. She spoke quietly, her hands clasped in her lap. "That's exactly what happened to me. He said I was special, that I was the only one he trusted. And I wanted to believe that. It made me feel less alone." The chat slowed, as though her words carried a sobering weight that cut through the scrolling frenzy. Then the responses came. "Don't blame yourself, Eleanor. You are special for being brave enough to share this. We love you." Tears welled in her eyes, but she smiled faintly. Keanu leaned toward the camera, his voice softened with compassion. "Do you hear that, Eleanor? You're not alone anymore. And neither is anyone watching who's been through this." Jamal clicked to another example, showing a fake screenshot of a direct message exchange. "Here's another tactic," he explained. "They copy-paste conversations to make it look like you're in a private chat with him. They'll send stolen photos, cropped just enough to feel intimate. Then they'll say, 'Don't tell anyone, but I need your help.' That secrecy is the hook. They're isolating you so no one can warn you." The chat exploded again. "This is exactly what I got. I almost sent money last week. My mom believed this." Keanu straightened, his expression solemn but resolute. "If you're hearing this and realizing it happened to you, don't carry that weight in silence. Speak it out loud. You are not to blame. They count on shame to keep you quiet. But tonight, that silence ends." The flood of hearts and affirmations in the chat was overwhelming. People weren't just learning the signs, they were reclaiming their voices. Priya brought up one final demonstration, this time focusing on voice cloning. The speakers played a clip of what sounded unmistakably like Keanu's voice. "Hello, my dear. I am reaching out to you privately. Please, help me with a personal cause. I can only rely on you. Send your send. Support quickly." The effect was chilling. Without the video, it was nearly impossible to tell it wasn't him. The chat froze for a moment before erupting in disbelief. "That sounds exactly like him. I would have believed that. This is terrifying." Keanu lifted his head, his eyes sharp but calm. "That's not me. That's software, trained on recordings of my real voice. Technology can now copy how I speak. But no matter how real it sounds, remember this. If the message is about money, it's a lie." Alex leaned into his microphone, explaining the mechanics. "These voice clones can be made with just a few minutes of audio. Scammers grab it from interviews or films and feed it into algorithms. The result is this kind of imitation. But listen carefully, there's always something off. The pacing, the emotion, the pauses. Machines mimic words, not humanity." Keanu nodded. "And if you're ever unsure, don't reply. Don't send money. Talk to someone you trust. Truth can stand up to daylight. Lies hide in the dark." The audience reacted with a mix of fear and relief. Many admitted in the chat that they had received similar voice messages, some even claiming they had recordings they thought were real. The honesty poured out, and with it, a collective sense of awakening. Eleanor's voice returned softly. "I wish I had known all of this before. But now, watching with all of you, I feel stronger. I don't feel like the foolish old woman I thought I was. I feel human again." Keanu's expression softened. "Eleanor, you were never foolish. And neither is anyone else here. Trusting people is not foolish. Trust is the foundation of love, of community, of everything good in us. What's foolish is thinking we can live without it." The chat exploded with affirmation. "Trust is strength. Thank you for saying this. I needed to hear that." Some even began posting the phrase repeatedly. "Trust is not weakness." It became a chant scrolling faster than any bot could bury. Maria, monitoring the feed, whispered to Alex, "They're not just listening, they're rallying." And she was right. The live stream had shifted again. It was no longer just about exposing tricks. It was about reclaiming trust itself, about reminding people that compassion, once stolen, could still be restored. Keanu leaned forward one last time for this segment. His voice was quiet, but unwavering. "Remember these signs. Remember Eleanor's courage. And remember that no matter how convincing the fake, it can never replace real humanity. Don't let them take your trust from you. It belongs to you. And it's stronger than they know." The stream carried those words outward, etched into the hearts of millions. The live stream transitioned again. Alex slid into the center of the frame, his hoodie pulled up, his fingers dancing across the keyboard. Behind him, Jamal mirrored the work, while Priya adjusted the display so that millions of viewers could see the process in real time. "All right, everyone," Alex said, his tone brisk but measured. "This is where we pull back the curtain. The scammers think they can hide behind crypto wallets. They tell victims it's untraceable. That's their favorite line. But the truth is, every transaction leaves a mark. It's recorded permanently on the blockchain. We just need to follow the trail." The screen filled with a string of alphanumeric characters, long, tangled, impossible to understand at first glance. "This," Alex explained, "is one of the wallets tied to the scammer who contacted Eleanor. We know because the address was included in the messages he sent her. Watch what happens when we dig deeper." Lines branched across the screen like a spider web, each transaction linked to another, forming a map of connections stretching across the digital space. The chat erupted with awe. "This looks like a crime scene map. Are we really seeing this? Live?" Keanu leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table, his eyes locked on the display. His voice carried a quiet intensity. "So every line is money someone lost?" Jamal nodded. "Exactly. Each one of these dots is a victim's payment. Look at how they converge. Dozens of small transfers funnel into bigger pools. They move it around to confuse people, but the blockchain doesn't forget. Priya zoomed in on a cluster of transactions. Here's where it gets interesting. This address is connected to multiple wallets across different platforms. They're trying to launder the funds, but every hop still leaves a trace. And look here, timestamps. Same hour, same region. The map pulsed with highlighted sections, narrowing toward a region marked by data analysis. The chat slowed in collective suspense. Then Alex said the words that made millions lean closer to their screens. Based on these logs, the strongest cluster points to Eastern Europe, likely a hub where the operation is coordinated. The reaction was instant. Eastern Europe? This is bigger than I thought. Are authorities watching this? Maria, monitoring the incoming feeds, raised her hand slightly. Yes, we've already pinged federal authorities. They're watching alongside us right now. A ripple of electricity surged through the stream. Viewers who had tuned in out of curiosity were now witnessing a live investigation unfold. It was no longer just education, it was evidence gathering in real time. Eleanor's small window remained visible in the corner. Her expression was stunned as she watched the branches of transactions multiply. All of that money came from people like me? She whispered. Keanu turned his head toward her image on the screen, his eyes steady. Not just like you, Eleanor. And tonight, we're showing the world where it went. They can't hide forever. Alex tapped his keyboard rapidly. The map zooming out to reveal even more connections. Notice how the funds scatter into different wallets, then reconverge. That's classic laundering. But here's the kicker. One of these accounts made a mistake. They used an exchange that requires partial identity verification. That slip is enough to start pulling names. The chat erupted again. This is insane. We're watching history happen. Catch them. Keanu's voice dropped into a near growl, controlled but heavy with resolve. Let's keep going. The map pulsed again, glowing brighter as the students dug deeper. Each breadcrumb revealed not just theft, but the architecture of an empire built on lies. The tension in the room thickened, the sense of battle no longer abstract. The shadows were being traced, and the light was closing in. The blockchain map expanded like a constellation across the screen. Every new click opened another branch, and every branch carried the weight of stolen lives. The audience leaned in, messages flashing by so fast they became a blur of outrage and astonishment. Priya steadied her voice, addressing the millions watching. Notice this pattern. Smaller amounts feed into mid-level wallets. From there, the funds merge into two large hubs. That's their control center. From those hubs, money gets dispersed again into shell accounts, sometimes connected to gambling sites or fake charities. The viewers reacted in waves. That's how they wash it. They're stealing from grandmothers and running it through fake charities. Jamal clicked on one of the mid-level wallets and highlighted a transaction. This here is the transfer Eleanor made. We can trace it. It went from her account into this wallet, and within minutes, it was broken down and redistributed into 10 smaller wallets. But they didn't cover their tracks perfectly. One of those wallets connects to an exchange registered in Prague. The chat nearly stopped in disbelief before surging again with fury, so close to being caught. Prague? That's huge. Maria turned in her chair, eyes wide. Authorities are confirming, in real time, they've locked eyes on that exchange. If this holds, it's not just evidence, it's a doorway into the whole network. Keanu's hands pressed together in front of his mouth, his eyes burning with focus. Every dot here is a life they tried to erase. But they left their fingerprints behind, and now the world is watching, Alex added quickly. This is why transparency matters. Scammers sell the illusion of invisibility, but in truth, their greed always leaves a trail. They don't realize that the same technology they abuse can also reveal them. The viewers roared in agreement. Some began posting their own wallet screenshots, adding potential links. Others typed encouragements. Keep chasing. Don't stop now. Keanu leaned forward again, his voice carrying into the silence that followed. This is bigger than Eleanor, bigger than me. We're exposing a system that thrives in the dark. Tonight, we shine the light, and we won't stop until every path is followed. The tension mounted as the team prepared to chase deeper, each keystroke echoing like a step into enemy territory. The stream had shifted again. It wasn't just awareness or education anymore. It had become a hunt. The moment the blockchain map stabilized on screen, the chat took on a life of its own. It was no longer just emojis, cheers, or shock. It became something raw, something heavier. Viewers who had been silent began pouring out stories they had never admitted, even to their families. My dad lost half his retirement savings last year. He never told anyone. He said he was helping you, Keanu. My grandmother almost sent $10,000. We stopped her at the last minute. She still cries because she thought she disappointed you. I sent $600 before I realized it was fake. I've been too ashamed to tell anyone until now. The confessions scrolled so fast, Maria had to freeze sections of the feed to capture them. She read them aloud in a low, steady voice, her tone carrying the weight of each broken sentence. Every story was a wound, but together they became something even stronger, evidence of how wide the scam had spread. Eleanor's small window flickered as she covered her mouth, her eyes brimming. All these people? I thought it was just me. Keanu turned toward her image. His voice was soft but resolute. It was never just you. Look at this. Thousands of people carrying the same burden. Tonight, we're lifting it together. The audience responded with a flood of hearts and affirmations. We're with you, Eleanor. You're not alone. We've all been there. The shame that had silenced so many began dissolving in the shared light of honesty. Then came a story that stilled the room. A man typed in capital letters, his words almost trembling on the screen. I lied to my wife. I lost our house deposit because I thought I was helping you. I've carried that secret for a year. The chat slowed as if holding its breath. Keanu's jaw tightened. He leaned closer, speaking directly into the camera. If you're listening right now, hear me. You are not alone in that pain. You are not foolish. The predators who did this are skilled, ruthless, and shameless. They know exactly how to twist trust into a weapon. The shame is theirs, not yours. The man replied seconds later, Thank you. I needed to hear that. Priya looked up from her laptop, her voice breaking the silence. Keanu, there are hundreds of these stories, more than we can read out loud. People are unloading years of silence because of this stream. Keanu inhaled deeply, his shoulders heavy but steady. He let the silence stretch, then spoke slowly, with the gravity of someone making a vow. I don't blame you. I blame the predators. And tonight, we fight back. The words rippled across the chat like fire catching dry grass. Viewers began repeating them, typing in unison. We fight back. We fight back. It became a chant, scrolling so quickly the letters blurred together. Eleanor wiped her eyes, whispering into her microphone. I never thought I'd see this. I never thought my shame could turn into something strong. Keanu nodded firmly, his gaze unflinching. That's what happens when truth is spoken out loud. Shame shrinks, courage grows. And tonight, all of us are standing together. The confessions didn't slow. A teenager typed, My mom almost wired money to a scammer. She was shaking when we stopped her. I felt like I saved her life. Another said, My neighbor actually pawned her jewelry. She thought she was joining a private charity with you. Each message hit like a blow, but each one also made the resolve in the room stronger. The flood of voices had become a river, unstoppable, carrying the weight of broken trust, but also the power of solidarity. The chat poured out more than anyone could have predicted. It wasn't just money people lost, it was trust, time, and in some cases, relationships. One message stood out. My daughter stopped talking to me because I sent thousands to a fake you. She said, I embarrassed the family. I've been alone since. Keanu's eyes softened, and he leaned toward the camera. If you're watching this, I want you to hear me clearly. You did not embarrass your family. You were targeted because of your kindness, because of your belief in good. That is not shameful. That is human." The chat responded instantly with a flood of empathy. Strangers reached out to the man with words of comfort. For the first time in months, maybe years, he was not carrying his pain alone. Another confession appeared. "I almost sent $5,000. I stopped only because my granddaughter asked me why you'd need money when you're in movies. If not for her, I would have lost everything." Eleanor raised her head at that comment, her expression tender. "That granddaughter saved you," she said softly. "Hold her close. She gave you a gift." Her words resonated deeply with the audience, a reminder that protection often comes from the quiet vigilance of loved ones. Jamal scrolled through hundreds of entries, his brow furrowed. "Keanu, look at this. Dozens of viewers are reporting identical wording in the scam messages. It's not just random. It's a coordinated script." Alex leaned in, energized. "That means we can track the origin faster. If they're repeating lines, we can trace where those scripts were seeded." But Keanu kept his focus on the human side. He placed both hands on the desk and spoke steadily into the camera. "For everyone typing tonight, whether you lost money, almost did, or stopped someone else from falling, know this: your story matters. Speaking it out loud tonight helps someone else recognize the danger tomorrow." The comments slowed, as though the audience collectively paused to absorb his words. Then new messages appeared, many repeating the phrase he had used earlier. "Trust is not weakness. We fight back. We stand together," Eleanor whispered again, her voice carrying both fragility and strength. "I don't feel small anymore." Keanu's eyes glistened as he turned toward her image. "You never were small, Eleanor. You were brave enough to write a letter. And tonight, that letter became a light for millions." The atmosphere in the stream shifted. What began as a flood of confessions was now transforming into a flood of resilience. The live stream had reached a breaking point of emotion. Confessions poured in faster than the students could capture, and yet through the heartbreak, a strange energy had taken hold. A collective desire not only to expose the truth, but to heal the damage it had caused. Keanu sat back for a moment, his hand resting lightly on Eleanor's letter beside him. He let the silence linger, the weight of the story settling across millions of viewers. Then, with a steady breath, he leaned forward. "I've listened tonight," he began, his voice low but unwavering. "I've heard stories of retirement savings lost, of family relationships fractured, of people carrying shame in silence. I can't erase what was taken, but I can choose what we do next." The chat slowed, viewers sensing something important was coming. "I've decided," he continued, "to create a fund. Not for me, not for movies or studios, but for the people who've been hurt by these scams. I'm calling it the Returning Trust Fund. And tonight, I'm starting it with a donation of $1 million. The words seemed to hang in the air before detonating across the stream. The chat erupted with shock. $1 million? He's serious. Oh my God, this is real. Hearts, clapping emojis, and crying faces poured across the screen like a tidal wave. Keanu pressed his palms together, his tone earnest. This isn't about charity. It's about restoring dignity. Every victim who felt invisible deserves to know they matter. I can't replace every dollar stolen, but I can return trust. And I want you, all of you, to help me make this bigger than one man's donation. If you can give, even a little, do it not for me, but for your neighbor, for your grandmother, for the people who believed in something good and were betrayed." At that moment, Maria activated a live tracker on screen. It showed the fund in real time, beginning with Keanu's million. Within seconds, contributions began trickling in. $10 here, $50 there, $100 from someone who wrote, "For my mom." The total ticked upward. Steadily, every new contribution, flashing with a message of who it was dedicated to. Eleanor's small window showed her silently crying, her hands pressed to her mouth. She shook her head in disbelief, whispering, "I never imagined, never." Keanu looked toward her with quiet tenderness. "Eleanor, Your courage started this. Your letter wasn't just a cry for help. It was a spark. Tonight, we build something together that scammers can never destroy. The chat ignited again. I'm donating now. This is for my grandpa who got scammed last year. We're with you. Donations began snowballing, the tracker climbing faster. Within minutes, the total passed 2 million, then 3. The audience cheered in real time, their comments flying so fast, even the moderators struggled to keep up. Alex leaned toward his mic, unable to contain his excitement. Look at this, Keanu. It's exponential. The more people see the number climb, the more they want to join. We're witnessing something historic. Keanu allowed himself the smallest smile, though his eyes remained solemn. This is what happens when pain is turned into purpose. The tracker on screen climbed like a rocket. 4 million, 5 million. Viewers gasped as the numbers rolled upward, each contribution joined by a short note. For my mom, who cried for weeks. For my dad, who thought he was helping you. For my sister, who nearly gave away her tuition. The names and stories filled the screen until they felt like a chorus, each note a fragment of the same song. Jamal adjusted the feed so viewers could see a live breakdown of donations by country. We've got people giving from Canada, Brazil, Germany, Japan, Australia, he narrated. This isn't just one corner of the world, it's everywhere. Keanu sat straighter, his voice taking on the weight of the moment. Do you see this? This is what trust really looks like. Not the false kind promised in secret messages, but the real kind. Millions of people standing together. The chat lit with affirmation. Trust is not weakness. We stand with you. Returning trust. The phrase returning trust became a chant across the feed, repeating so fast it blurred into a steady rhythm of solidarity. Eleanor's camera showed her quietly weeping, her scarf bunched in her lap. She whispered almost to herself, but the microphone caught it. I thought my story would bring shame. Instead, it brought this. Keanu turned to her, his tone filled with warmth. Eleanor, your story brought people back to themselves. You gave them permission to stop hiding. And tonight, millions are proving that compassion can't be stolen. The total climbed higher, 6 million. 7. Maria announced updates every few minutes, her voice trembling with excitement. This is unprecedented. We've never seen anything like it in real time. Alex leaned back, shaking his head in disbelief. We started tonight hoping to expose a scam. Now we're watching a movement fund itself live. Priya smiled faintly. And all of it is transparent. Every transaction, every note of support, visible for anyone to see. The exact opposite of how the scammers operate. The audience roared in response, thrilled by the contrast. Transparency had become their weapon, honesty their shield. Keanu leaned forward again, his hands clasped together. To those who gave tonight, thank you. To those who couldn't give but stayed, shared, and spoke their truth, you gave something even greater. You gave courage. This fund will be used to help those who were harmed, but more than that, it will stand as a symbol. A reminder that when trust is broken, we can build it back together. The total passed 8 million, then 9. By the end of the segment, the counter tipped over the 10 to million mark. The chat exploded into cheers, the feed nearly crashing under the weight of celebration. Eleanor covered her face, sobbing softly, overwhelmed by gratitude. Between tears, she whispered, You returned more than money tonight. You returned my hope. Keanu's eyes glistened as he looked toward her. And that, Eleanor, is worth more than any number. The stream settled into a hushed reverence as the total glowed on screen. $10 million raised in under an hour. But more than the money, it was the message. Trust could be broken, but it could also be returned. And tonight, it had been. The library buzzed with a tense electric silence as Alex tapped at his keyboard. The blockchain trail had led them to hubs of activity. But now, it was time to dig deeper. Millions of people were still watching, their eyes fixed on the live feed. The donation tracker glowed in one corner of the screen, but Alex switched the main display to a different window, lines of code, IP traces, and digital breadcrumbs flashing in rapid succession. Crypto gave us the money trail, Alex explained, his voice carrying over the soft clatter of keys. Now we move into OSINT open source intelligence. This is where we take what they've left behind in the open and connect the dots. The chat, filled with nervous anticipation. Are they really going to show them? Is this legal? I can't believe this is happening live. Priya joined in, her voice calm but firm. We're not hacking their personal data. We're using what they exposed themselves. Fake domains they registered, emails they recycled, avatars they copied and pasted from one profile to another. Scammers think they're invisible, but arrogance always leaves a trail. On screen, Alex pulled up a series of fake websites that had been used to lure victims. The designs were clumsy imitations of legitimate charities, their logos slightly off, their addresses non-existent. But hidden in the metadata were clues. A server location that pointed back to a single provider. A reused contact email that matched multiple scams. Jamal chimed in, highlighting the data. Here, see this? Same registrar, same time zone, and this domain shares hosting with 5 others. Whoever's behind this got lazy. The chat reacted instantly. They slipped. Got 'em. Alex clicked again, and a set of images filled the screen profile pictures from fake social accounts. At first, they seemed convincing, but Priya overlaid them with reverse image results, revealing they had been stolen from ordinary people across the internet. Then, suddenly, one image broke the pattern. It didn't show up anywhere else. This one's original, Alex said, his voice tightening, which means someone slipped. They uploaded their own picture by mistake. The photo zoomed in on a young man in his 20s, wearing headphones in a dimly lit room. His face was half lit by the glow of a screen. The chat gasped collectively. Is that him? That's one of them. Keanu's eyes fixed on the image. His expression wasn't angry. It was steady, heavy, with quiet disappointment. This is what greed looks like when it hides behind stolen names, he said softly. The room fell silent. The weight of his words pressed into the millions watching, shifting the tone from shock to reflection. This wasn't about vengeance, it was about truth. Alex moved quickly, pulling up more data. We've got a second. Different account. Same server. Here's another face. Another image appeared. A man in his 30s with cropped hair, posing in front of a car he clearly wanted to flaunt. The chat roared again, half in rage, half in satisfaction. Maria leaned toward her mic. Screenshots are being logged and passed to law enforcement as we speak. The audience erupted with gratitude. Yes, get them. Justice. But Keanu raised his hand gently, calming the fervor. Don't celebrate too soon. Remember, these faces are not monsters. They're people who chose greed over compassion. Justice will come, but tonight is about protecting those who were hurt. The chat stilled, sobered by his words. The mission wasn't about spectacle, it was about dignity. And in that moment, millions felt the difference. The second image lingered on the screen, the man's smug grin illuminated by the soft glow of the monitors in Keanu's library. The chat seethed with rage. That's the guy who took my aunt's savings. He looks proud of himself. Lock him up. Jamal kept his composure, scrolling through linked metadata. There's more. Look. This email was used to register multiple domains. Same contact detail, same recycled password patterns. They thought hiding behind fake names was enough, but their laziness betrayed them. Priya added, it's always the same story. They build a web of lies, but every lie leaves a thread. Follow enough threads, and the mask unravels. Alex tapped his keyboard and pulled up a collage of avatars tied to the operation. Many were stolen images of models, celebrities, and random people, but sprinkled among them were careless slips, original selfies, background details, usernames recycled across platforms. Each clue was like a puzzle piece snapping into place. The chat filled with gasps as the collage shifted into recognizable faces. A middle-aged man with sharp features leaning against a cafe table. Another in a group photo, his hand resting on a friend's shoulder. A third caught mid-laugh in a grainy shot, unaware the photo would one day be part of an international broadcast. Maria spoke steadily, almost like an anchor delivering the news. Every one of these faces is being logged and reported to law enforcement agencies watching right now. Tonight, they will not vanish back into the shadows. Keanu looked at the faces, then back at the camera. His voice carried no fire, only a deep, mournful calm. When you look at them, remember this. They chose this. They chose to weaponize trust. They chose to steal from the lonely, the elderly, the kind. This is what greed looks like when it hides behind stolen names. The chat slowed, reverent, as if processing his words. Some typed their anger, others typed only silence rows of dots, broken hearts, crying emojis. Eleanor's small window lit again. Her voice was fragile, but unwavering. I thought I'd never know who hurt me. I thought they would always be faceless, but now I see them. And strangely, I don't feel hate. I feel pity, because they gave up their humanity for money. Her words struck the viewers harder than anger ever could. The chat erupted with affirmations. You're incredible, Eleanor. That's strength. You're teaching us more than the scammers ever could. Alex cleared his throat, breaking the silence. We're packaging everything now. Screenshots, metadata, logs. It's already being transmitted securely. By morning, this evidence will be in the hands of multiple agencies. Jamal glanced up, his face set with determination. Tonight, the hunters became the hunted. Keanu leaned closer to the camera, his expression calm but resolute. Justice doesn't roar. It speaks steadily, patiently. And tonight, it spoke here. These faces will face accountability. But more importantly, the people they hurt finally have their truth. The chat erupted once more, not just with anger, but with relief. The masks had been pulled away, and in their place, the world saw greed, small and exposed under the weight of truth. The faces on the screen hadn't been up for more than a few minutes before the retaliation began. The chat, which had been flowing with affirmations and relief, suddenly shifted. Strange accounts with random strings of numbers flooded the feed. Messages screamed nonsense in all caps. Walls of emojis filled the screen, and links to malicious sites popped up faster than the moderators could block them. Jamal's eyes narrowed as his console lit with alerts. They're here. The scammers are pushing back. Bot swarms, coordinated spam. They're trying to drown us out. The audience noticed instantly. What's happening? The chat's going crazy. Stay strong. Alex cracked his knuckles, a grin tugging at his mouth. All right, game on. His fingers flew over the keyboard, launching countermeasures. We built floodgates for this exact reason. Maria began activating filters, blocking suspicious accounts by the X's. Dozens. Priya adjusted the stream latency to absorb surges without dropping the feed. Jamal rerouted traffic through backup servers, deflecting denial of service attempts like a shield against incoming fire. The viewers erupted with cheers. Fight back! Get them! This feels like a movie. Keanu sat steady, his hands clasped before him. His expression was calm, but his voice carried an intensity that cut through the chaos. This is what it looks like when those who steal are exposed. They lash out, they scramble, they try to silence. But truth doesn't break under noise. Truth holds steady. The chat surged again, this time with supportive chants. Truth holds steady. We're with you. Don't give up. On screen, Alex pulled up a visual of the attack in progress. Waves of bot accounts hammering at the feed. Thousands of automated messages designed to bury the voices of real people. Then, as his code executed, viewers watched the flood split apart. Whole blocks of spam vanished, replaced once again by authentic confessions and affirmations. The audience cheered as though watching an enemy retreat. Priya explained while she worked, her voice calm but firm. This is a war of endurance. Bots can overwhelm, but they're shallow. They don't carry heart, they don't carry truth. Every time we clear them, your voices come through stronger. Keanu leaned closer to the camera, his gaze unwavering. This is more than a technical battle. It's a war for the heart of trust. Every message of support, every donation, every confession spoken tonight is a weapon stronger than theirs. They can flood the screen, but they cannot drown the truth. The audience roared with approval. The chat scrolling so fast, it became a blur of hearts and cheers. Eleanor, watching from her small corner, whispered through her tears, "They're scared. That's why they fight so hard." Her words struck a chord. Viewers repeated them over and over. "They're scared. That's why they fight." It became another chant, scrolling endlessly across the feed. The team worked with relentless focus. Alex intercepted another wave of spam, blocking thousands of accounts with a single keystroke. Jamal rerouted again, keeping the stream live against all odds. Maria reassured viewers, narrating their resilience like a play-by-play of battle. And through it all, Keanu remained the anchor. His calm presence steadied the millions watching, his words cutting through the digital storm. Noise fades, truth endures. Tonight, we endure together. The feed stabilized. The bots thinned, their power weakening against the prepared defenses. The audience erupted in triumph, typing victory messages like a crowd in a stadium. For the first time in history, millions had watched not just a live stream, but a digital war for trust unfold in real time, and they had cheered their way to the front line. The battle raged on for nearly 20 minutes. Every time the scammers launched a new tactic, the students countered. When waves of fake links appeared, Maria's filters swept them away. When denial of service spikes hit, Jamal rerouted the traffic so quickly the audience barely noticed a glitch. Alex's fingers never stopped moving, his voice sharp with focus. "They're throwing everything they've got, but we're holding." The audience responded like a roaring crowd, their words scrolling like banners in a stadium. "Hold the line. We're with you. Truth wins." For once, the chat itself became a weapon. Its volume, its unity, drowning out the last remnants of spam. Priya glanced at Keanu and gave a small nod. "We've stabilized. They can't break through." Keanu leaned forward, his face calm but his eyes alight with fire. "You've all just witnessed what happens when darkness collides with light. They tried to flood us with noise, to bury your voices, but you stood firm. You kept speaking. You kept believing. And look, we're still here." The chat erupted with pride, users typing, "We're still here," over and over, transforming the phrase into a chant that pulsed across the screen. Eleanor wiped her cheeks, her voice fragile but certain. "They can't silence us anymore." Keanu nodded. "Exactly. This wasn't just a technical attack, it was symbolic. They tried to make you feel small, invisible, powerless. But what happened instead? You grew louder, you grew stronger. And tonight, you proved that trust can withstand even the worst storms." Alex exhaled, leaning back in his chair for the first time. "They'll retreat for now. They'll regroup. But tonight, they lost ground they'll never get back." Jamal checked the monitors, confirming stability. "The stream is solid. The audience is with us. We're safe." For the millions watching, the tension eased into exhilaration. What had felt like chaos moments ago now felt like triumph. Viewers filled the chat with celebrations, hearts, and messages of unity. Some even typed, "This is history, and I'll never forget this night." Keanu raised his hand slightly, as though quieting a crowd. His tone was firm, reverent. "Remember this feeling. Not the fear, not the noise, but the strength of standing together. This was not just a battle of machines, it was a battle of spirit. And tonight, the spirit of trust won." The comments flooded once again, echoing his words. The spirit of trust won. We fight back. Truth endures. The digital showdown had ended not with silence, but with voices stronger than ever. The stream steadied after the digital storm, but the atmosphere remained charged. Millions of people stayed glued to their screens, their hearts pounding from the battle they had just witnessed. Then Maria's voice broke through, her tone urgent but electric. "We just received confirmation. The evidence package we've been transmitting is in motion. Authorities are already acting." The chat froze, then erupted. "Wait right now? What does that mean? Are we watching justice happen live?" Alex spun his laptop around so Keanu could see. "Look at this. Our partners in Europe are online. Cybercrime units flagged the Prague exchange we identified earlier. Raids are being coordinated as we speak. Keanu's eyes sharpened. He turned back to the camera, his tone calm but edged with something powerful. To everyone watching, this isn't theoretical anymore. As we sit here together, international authorities are moving. They are striking the very operations that preyed on people like Eleanor. Justice isn't waiting for tomorrow. It's happening now. The reaction in the chat was instantaneous. Yes, finally. They can't run now! Messages filled with tears, clapping, and prayers scrolled so fast the moderators couldn't catch them all. Eleanor's window flickered. She pressed a hand to her mouth, her eyes wide. You mean they're being caught? Tonight? Not just shown, but stopped? Keanu nodded, turning his gaze directly to her. His voice softened, but carried the weight of a promise. This is for you, Eleanor, and for everyone who thought they were alone in this. Tonight proves you never were. Tears slid down her cheeks, but this time they weren't of shame or regret. They were tears of release. For the first time since the scam began, justice felt real, not abstract. Priya leaned toward her mic, her voice steady with determination. We just got confirmation of warrants being executed in multiple countries. Servers are being seized, accounts frozen. They can't hide behind screens anymore. Jamal added quickly, his excitement breaking through his usual calm. This is history. We're not just teaching people how scams work. We're dismantling one live with the world as witnesses. The audience erupted again, their joy filling the digital space like thunder. History in the making. Eleanor, this is for you. We're seeing justice. Keanu held up a hand gently, quieting the flood just enough to be heard. Remember this moment. Remember that when you speak, when you come forward, when you refuse to carry shame in silence, justice moves. Tonight isn't just a live stream. It's proof that truth, once spoken, has power. Eleanor whispered into her microphone, her voice trembling. I never thought my little letter could do this. Keanu's expression softened, his eyes warm. That little letter carried the weight of every stolen voice. It became a spark, and sparks, when shared, become fire. The chat filled with a chant again, this time chosen by the viewers themselves, for Eleanor, for Eleanor. It repeated endlessly, a digital chorus echoing across continents. Alex glanced at the flood of comments, then at Keanu. They're not just watching anymore. They're part of it. This is collective justice. And the night already extraordinary shifted once again. Maria kept refreshing her secure channel with law enforcement updates, her voice quick and charged. Confirmation just came in. Servers in Prague are being seized right now. A coordinated raid is happening simultaneously in Bucharest and Warsaw. They're moving on multiple fronts. The audience exploded with messages. I can't believe this is live. We're watching justice in real time. This is history. Priya pointed to the blockchain tracker still on display. See this? Transactions we flagged earlier are already being frozen. Wallets that funneled money from victims are now locked. That means stolen funds can't vanish further into the system, Jamal added, his eyes fixed on his monitors. Authorities just confirmed arrests tied to 2 of the fake domains we uncovered. The arrogance of reusing those avatars left enough breadcrumbs to act. The chat, filled with disbelief that melted into relief. They're really being caught. After years of hurting people, it's ending. For the first time, I feel safe. Eleanor sat in her little window, stunned. Her lips trembled as she whispered, I thought they would always be untouchable. I thought people like me didn't matter enough for anyone to chase them. Keanu turned toward her, his voice steady but tender. Eleanor, you matter. Every victim matters. And tonight, the world is proving that your story is powerful enough to move nations. This isn't the end, it's the beginning of accountability. Her eyes shone with gratitude as she nodded. Then maybe I can sleep tonight, knowing it wasn't all for nothing. Keanu leaned back slightly, turning his attention to the millions still watching. I want everyone to remember what you're seeing. Justice doesn't move when we're silent. It moves when we refuse to be quiet. when we shine light into the places people said were too dark to reach. Tonight, Eleanor spoke, you spoke, and justice answered. Alex leaned into his microphone, breaking the tension with a grin. And if the scammers are still watching this stream, I hope you enjoy the view. Because the walls are closing in. The chat erupted with laughter and applause. Yes, they're watching their empire fall. Poetic justice. Priya steadied her voice, refocusing the mood. What matters most is this. Thousands of people who felt powerless now see their voices mattered. That's the legacy of tonight. Keanu nodded slowly, his tone grave but hopeful. This is not vengeance. This is restoration. Eleanor, tonight, your courage restored trust for millions. And to everyone watching, you're no longer just an audience. You're part of a movement that says, enough. Enough lies. Enough shame. Enough silence. The donation tracker pulsed again in the corner, climbing higher as people poured in contributions, many leaving notes. For justice. For Eleanor. For every victim. The numbers surged as though the arrests themselves fueled the momentum. Maria announced the update with awe. The fund just passed 12 million. People are giving faster than we can tally. Keanu glanced at Eleanor's tearful smile and then back to the camera. Do you see? When justice is real, it inspires more than fear in the guilty. It inspires courage in the innocent. That is the power of truth. The chat filled with one final chant that grew louder by the second. Truth inspires. Truth inspires. The cameras captured Keanu's faint smile, his eyes steady with quiet fire. Tonight wasn't just about faces on a screen. It was about the first domino falling, the beginning of justice carried live to the world. And as the raids unfolded across the globe, millions bore witness to a moment when silence broke and trust began to return. The library glowed with the faint blue of computer monitors when a sudden alert pinged across Maria's screen. She leaned closer, her eyes widening. Keanu, you need to see this. The room stilled. Priya paused mid-typing. Alex swiveled around, and Jamal pushed his chair closer. Maria refreshed her secure channel and read aloud, her voice trembling with urgency. Local authorities in Eastern Europe have just confirmed one of the operators we flagged during the stream was apprehended mid-operation. They caught him as he tried to move funds through a new wallet. They said the live stream leads were instrumental. For a heartbeat, silence blanketed the room. Then the chat erupted in a frenzy of joy and disbelief. They got one? Justice. This is history. The screen filled with cheers, clapping emojis, and crying faces, so fast the words blurred together in a glowing river of triumph. Keanu leaned forward, his face illuminated by the glow. His voice carried both astonishment and relief. You're hearing this with us, live. Tonight, as we sit here together, one of the people who stole trust and dignity from thousands has been arrested. Not someday, not next week, right now. The eruption in the chat was seismic. We did it. He's caught. This is for Eleanor. Messages flew by, each one more emotional than the last. Across living rooms, bedrooms, and quiet corners of the world, people who had once felt powerless suddenly felt united in victory. Eleanor's window lit up, her face pale with shock. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "They actually caught him. I never thought this would happen." She pressed her hand over her heart, struggling to steady her breath. Keanu looked directly into her image, his voice gentle yet powerful. "This isn't just another headline, Eleanor. This is for you. For every widow, every grandfather, every son or daughter who thought they were alone. Tonight the world is saying, you were never alone." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but this time, they were tears of joy. She whispered softly, "You gave us back more than money. You gave us hope." Her words struck deep, echoing across the chat as viewers repeated them. "You gave us hope. Hope returned. This is what victory feels like." Alex couldn't contain his grin as he tapped his keyboard furiously. "This is groundbreaking." Authorities said the live evidence, the real-time wallet traces, gave them the leverage to act immediately. They would never have moved this fast without the eyes of the world watching. Priya added, her voice steady but filled with pride. For once, technology wasn't used to exploit trust. It was used to restore it. The chat swelled with support, people typing that they felt part of history. Some wrote that they would remember this night forever. Others promised to share it with their families so no one would fall prey again. Keanu leaned closer to the microphone, his tone quiet but resonant. This is what happens when truth doesn't stay silent, when kindness is no longer a weakness to be exploited. Tonight, one link in their chain has broken, and when one breaks, the rest begin to fall. The audience cheered, their words filling the screen with waves of celebration. For the first time, the scammer's empire didn't feel invincible. It felt fragile. And the world was watching it crack. The news rippled through the live stream like a shockwave. The audience, already millions strong, surged with energy. Hearts, claps, and cries of relief poured in by the thousands. People typed furiously, as if their words could become part of the very justice unfolding before them. Maria read another update from her secure feed, her voice trembling with adrenaline. Authorities confirmed the suspect was logged into one of the fake domains when they entered. They seized his equipment live. They already have evidence tying him to dozens of accounts. Alex slapped the table with excitement. That means the data isn't just digital trails, it's direct proof. They can connect him to real victims, Jamal added, his tone fierce. And with him in custody, they'll pull more names. Networks like this don't survive when even one link breaks. The chat lit up with chants again. One down, break the chain. For Eleanor, Keanu looked straight into the camera, his voice steady, resonant. You're witnessing something rare. For years, these crimes thrived in silence. Victims felt alone, ashamed. But tonight, in real time, we've seen the power of speaking out. We've seen how courage can turn the tide. This is not the end. It's the first step. The chat slowed, reverent, as if the millions of viewers were leaning in, hanging on his every word. Then the feed exploded once more with affirmation. First step, truth wins. Hope restored. Eleanor's window showed her trembling with emotion. She clasped her hands tightly, then reached toward the screen as if trying to touch the moment itself. Her voice cracked as she whispered, I feel like I can breathe again. For the first time since this started, I don't feel powerless. Keanu's eyes softened. That's what tonight was always about. Not just catching faces, not just freezing accounts, but giving you back your breath. Giving you back the dignity they tried to steal. Maria announced the latest donation total as the tracker pulsed higher. The fund just passed 15 million. People are giving even faster now. They're calling it Fuel for Justice. The audience cheered louder, their words becoming a digital roar. Many wrote, I donated for my grandma, for my dad, for Eleanor. The community had transformed from spectators into participants in a movement larger than any one person. Keanu raised his hand gently, calming the wave of emotion, just enough to close the moment with clarity. His tone was calm, but charged with conviction. One operator was caught tonight. More will follow. But the true victory isn't one arrest. It's millions of people choosing not to stay silent. Tonight, the chain of lies began to crack. And from this moment forward, trust will no longer be theirs to steal. The chat erupted again, messages flying faster than any bot could bury. Trust is ours. Hope restored. Justice. And in the center of the screen, Eleanor smiled through her tears, her hand resting over her heart. The woman who had once felt invisible now watched the world rise in her name. The stream quieted. The flood of confessions, the victory of justice, the chants of millions, all of it slowly softened into a profound hush. Keanu sat in the center of the frame, his shoulders slightly hunched, his eyes shadowed by the weight of everything that had been shared. The students fell silent around him. Even Eleanor, who had wept through the news of the arrest, now sat still, watching him. He placed his hands flat on the table, then lifted his gaze directly into the lens, as if he were looking into the eyes of every viewer at once. His voice was low, but it carried with the strength of truth. My name is not a ticket to drain your trust. No Name Island. Not mine, not anyone's. Trust is sacred. It is the bond that makes us human. It is what allows us to reach out, to believe, to love. And when someone exploits that, when they twist it into a weapon, they do more than steal money. They try to steal the very thing that makes life worth living. The chat slowed to almost nothing. A river of dots, hearts, and tears scrolled quietly, as if the world collectively leaned in closer. Keanu continued, his tone steady but charged with emotion. Technology can fake a face. It can clone a voice. It can weave lies so convincing that even the sharpest among us might pause. But here is what it cannot fake: compassion. It cannot fake kindness. It cannot fake the love that flows between people who choose to stand together, that no machine, no scammer, no thief can ever replicate. He paused, letting the words linger. His eyes glistened, but he didn't look away. Do not let anyone take that away from you. Not through shame, not through fear, not through lies. If you've been hurt, if you've been tricked, know this: it does not make you weak. It makes you human. And humanity is stronger than any technology designed to break it. In the corner of the screen, Eleanor bowed her head, her hands trembling as she clasped them together. The students sat, motionless, their faces softened with respect, their monitors casting gentle halos of light. Keanu drew a breath and went on, his voice quieter now, almost a whisper, but carried by the silence of millions. I've spent my life playing roles. Heroes, fighters, men who save the day. But tonight, none of that matters. Tonight, what matters is telling you that you don't need a hero in a movie to protect you. You already carry the strength you need. It's in your trust. It's in your belief in good. And that is worth defending. The chat filled again, this time not with frantic typing, but with slow, deliberate words. Thank you. We needed this. I believe again. Hearts and crying faces pulsed like quiet applause, reverent and unending. Keanu bowed his head briefly, then raised it again with a final truth. Tonight you've shown me something I'll never forget. Trust can be stolen, but it can also be returned. And once it's returned, it shines brighter than before. The silence that followed was thunderous. The silence hung for what felt like a full minute. A silence not of absence but of reverence. Across millions of homes, people leaned closer to their screens, not wanting to miss a syllable. The students kept their heads bowed, as if the room itself had become sacred ground. Keanu's voice broke the stillness, quiet but steady. I want you to remember something. You are not defined by the lies told to you. You are defined by the truth you choose to live by. If someone tricked you, that does not erase your worth. If someone stole from you, that does not erase your dignity. They can take money, but they cannot take the heart that gave it. The chat, though overwhelmed with tears and hearts, carried longer, slower responses. I needed to hear this. My father is watching beside me and crying. This is healing more than money ever could. Keanu looked down briefly, then back to the lens. For years, many of you carried your pain in silence. You hid it out of fear of ridicule, fear of being called foolish. But tonight, we shattered that silence. Tonight, the truth rang louder than the lies. And I promise you, no scammer, no thief, no machine will ever take that truth away again. Eleanor lifted her head, her face shining with tears, and whispered softly into her microphone. I don't feel ashamed anymore. Keanu smiled faintly, his eyes tender. Good, because you never should have. You gave out of love, Eleanor. And love, even when misused by the wrong hands, is not weakness. It is the strongest thing we have. The chat erupted with agreement, dozens typing the same line. Love is strength. Keanu pressed his palms together, his voice growing firmer. So hear me, everyone watching. The next time someone tries to steal from you, remember this night. Remember Eleanor's courage. Remember the millions of voices who stood together. Technology can create illusions, but it cannot create what we built here. What we built tonight is real, and it will last. The donations tracker pulsed again, soaring past another milestone, but no one mentioned the number now. The money mattered, but the words mattered more. Keanu drew one last deep breath, his eyes heavy but resolute. My name is not a ticket to drain your trust. No Name Island. Hold on to that truth. Protect it. Share it. And never again let anyone make you believe that your kindness is a flaw. It is your power, and it will always be stronger than their greed. The silence after those words was overwhelming. Millions of people sat in living rooms and bedrooms, tears streaming silently, hands pressed to their hearts. The students around Keanu bowed their heads deeper, humbled by the weight of the moment. Eleanor sat with her hand over her heart, her tears no longer of grief, but of release. The chat finally came alive again, not with chaos, but with unity. Trust is our power. Love is strength. Compassion cannot be faked. Endless rows of hearts and crying emojis flowed like a river of gratitude. Keanu closed his eyes briefly, then opened them once more, his gaze unwavering. Tonight, we didn't just fight back. We remembered who we are. Don't ever let anyone take that away again. The stream faded into silence once more, but this time, the silence was not heavy. It was full of trust, of love, of dignity reclaimed. The night bled slowly into morning, and with it came a rare stillness after the storm. The library, once alive with furious typing and cascading alerts, now sat in a hushed calm. Screens glowed faintly with data logs and frozen maps, relics of a digital battle that had shaken the world. Keanu sat quietly at the long table, his hands folded, his eyes heavy with exhaustion, but also lit by something deeper, the quiet knowledge that history had shifted. The students lingered nearby, some slumped back in their chairs, others leaning against the walls, their expressions a mix of pride and disbelief. It was Eleanor who broke the silence. From her small bag, she pulled out something soft, carefully folded, the yarn worn but strong. She stood slowly, her hands trembling as she held it out toward him. "I made this for you," she whispered, "so you never forget the warmth you gave us." Keanu looked at the bundle in her hands, his breath catching in his throat. It was a scarf, hand-knitted in shades of gray and blue, the stitches uneven but full of care. He rose to his feet and accepted it with both hands, holding it as though it were more valuable than any award he had ever received. His voice was hushed with reverence. "Eleanor, thank you. This means more than I can ever say." She smiled through her tears. "It isn't perfect, but neither am I. Still, I wanted you to have something real, something made with love, not stolen, not faked." Fabric was warm, soft, grounding. He looked back at Eleanor, his voice breaking slightly. "This is perfect, because it carries what no machine ever could, your heart." The students lowered their heads instinctively, recognizing the sacredness of the moment. None of them spoke. Even the chat, still alive with millions of viewers, slowed into long lines of hearts, crying faces, and quiet affirmations. As dawn crept in through the curtains, the outside world began to react. News outlets buzzed with headlines, anchors scrambling to cover the unprecedented event. Phones lit up with breaking news banners. Keanu Reeves saves thousands in real-time scam exposé. Commentators called it one of the most powerful digital interventions in history, blending celebrity influence with raw humanity, and watched live by millions. Maria scrolled through the coverage, her voice filled with awe. Every major network is leading with this story. "They're calling it a turning point for online safety," Jamal added. "Law enforcement confirmed more arrests overnight. They're saying the evidence stream is already the foundation for multiple prosecutions." Priya wiped her eyes, still stunned. "This wasn't just a live stream. It was a line in the sand. From now on, scammers will know people aren't powerless anymore." Alex chuckled softly, shaking his head. We thought we were coming here to teach a little about digital safety. Instead, we ended up part of history." Keanu looked at each of them in turn, his hand still resting on the scarf. "You all gave more than your skills tonight. You gave hope. And Eleanor, you reminded us all of what trust really means." Her smile was faint, but radiant. "No, Keanu, you reminded us. I just wrote a letter." The students bowed their heads again, humbled by her words. Keanu turned back to the camera, his voice quiet, solemn. "This scarf will stay with me, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Compassion is the only thing you can't fake." The chat erupted one final time, the words scrolling endlessly. "Compassion is real. You can't fake love. Hope restored." By the time the sun had fully risen, the story had already swept across the globe. Clips from the live stream flooded social media, each moment replayed with awe. Eleanor reading her truth, the blockchain trail unraveling, the faces of scammers exposed, the coordinated strike, and finally, Keanu's quiet monologue on trust. People who had never once tuned into a live stream before were now sharing it as a beacon of what the internet could be when guided by compassion instead of greed. News anchors struggled to describe it. Some called it a digital revolution, others, a global act of defense. One headline captured the heart of it: "Compassion cannot be faked." That line spread faster than any bot ever could, carried by the millions who had witnessed it firsthand. Inside the library, the team watched clips of reporters speaking with cybercrime experts. The experts admitted that never before had such a large-scale scam network been disrupted live, with both evidence and global witnesses secured in real time. It was a precedent they said would change law enforcement strategies going forward. Eleanor sat beside Keanu, still overwhelmed. "I thought my letter would only bring you sadness. I never imagined it would bring the world hope." Keanu shook his head gently. "Your letter wasn't just sadness, it was truth. And truth, when spoken, always grows. You gave the world a gift." She clasped his hand, her eyes glistening. "And you gave me back dignity. That's worth more than money." The students looked on with quiet pride, their exhaustion softened by the knowledge of what they had accomplished. Jamal leaned back, exhaling. "We didn't just fight a battle, we helped rewrite the rules," Priya added. And it all started with one voice refusing to stay silent. She looked at Eleanor and smiled warmly. Keanu tugged gently at the scarf around his neck, feeling its warmth. He looked back to the camera, addressing the millions who would continue to watch the replay for days, months, even years. His voice was steady, final, yet full of hope. "Remember this. Technology will keep changing, but the one thing it cannot replicate, cannot counterfeit, is compassion. Compassion is the only thing you can't fake. Carry it with you, protect it, share it, because in the end, it's the only truth that endures." The screen filled with waves of hearts, prayers, and words of gratitude. For once, the internet felt united, not by outrage, not by division, but by shared humanity.